Hi and welcome to my November new book releases video. I post these videos about new book releases every single month, so please like and subscribe if you enjoy them. I typically only speak about my most anticipated new releases because I have to be talking about books that I'm excited about, but I often just put in a few more popular releases that I might not necessarily read, but you guys might be interested in, so that it's definitely on your radars. November is a bit of a quiet release month because it's the run up to Christmas. Most of my most anticipated new releases have actually already released, but I do have a good few that I am looking forward to. Some I am really excited for, other ones I'm gonna probably get from the library. So I have roughly 19 to 20 new releases here to talk about today. Let's get started. The first one is Lost and Lassoed. This is the third book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I don't know if it's the final one. I don't know if the author is going to be coming out with more. This is a contemporary romance western book series, and this one follows a woman called Teddy who is chaotic, never has a plan, and a guy called Gus Ryder who I think is taking care of his family's ranch. They meet and they don't really like each other. I think it's like a enemies to lovers or enemies to lovers forced proximity romance book. So this one and the next few books are coming out on the 5th of November. The next one is The Lake of Lost Girls. This one is a mystery thriller book, and this is probably one of the ones I'm most excited for from this list. This book is told in alternating timelines. The first one is in 1998, in which female students are going missing from university in North Carolina. Meanwhile, the main character, Jessica, is kind of going through some stuff. I don't know what that stuff is. She used to be a really kind of bright student and top of the class, and then she starts to spiral for one reason or another, and then she disappears. She's one of the female students who disappear. And then the other timeline is set 24 years later, and Jessica's sister, Lindsay, is searching for answers, and she gets in touch with a podcast host, and I guess things just kick off from there. I really enjoy thrillers with a podcast element, so I'm considering getting this one via audio. I'm gonna have a quick listen to the audiobook before I do purchase it and see if it's my kind of thing, because I'm quite picky with my audiobook narrators. I don't know if anyone else is. They have to really draw me in for me to be interested, and I don't know, sometimes I find them cringy, so I struggle to listen to some audiobooks, but I'm sure this one is good, especially because it's got the podcast element as well. Revenant X is also coming out on the 5th of November. This is a space horror book. It's the sequel to Paradise 1, which you might have heard of. Because it's a sequel, I won't speak too much about it, but what I can tell you is the first book is one that I really enjoyed. It is about a special agent called Petrov who was cryogenically frozen, and she wakes up to find the ship alarm systems kind of going off, and she knows something is clearly quite wrong on the spaceship that she's on. This ship has been heading to a deep space colony, and they are almost there when they are attacked by another vessel, and so the main characters have to figure out what is going on. Why is this vessel attacking them when it's meant to be one of theirs? And they also cannot contact the people in this colony. I really enjoyed the first book. It has really stuck with me. It was super creepy, so I would highly recommend picking up the first one and seeing if you're into it. And I'm looking forward to reading the sequel when it's out. The Improvisers. This one I think is historical fiction. I think it's adult. This is a standalone book set in the same world as the author's other series, the Murder and Magic series, which I don't think I've heard of. If I have, it's not really stuck with me. This one follows a pilot in the 1930s who somehow gets involved in looking into a mystery surrounding magical artifacts which seem to be manipulating people. There's a bit of fantasy stuff in there as well. I probably won't pick this one up right away, but I think it does sound really good. Where the Library Hides. This is the sequel to What the River Knows. This series is set in Egypt. I think the main character's parents were archaeologists or something. They travel to Egypt. She goes and follows in their footsteps. I don't really know what the first book is about, but I do actually really want to read it. I'm just staying away from kind of plot elements and spoilers and things because I'd like to go into books knowing nothing. I did unfortunately just see a spoiler from opening this book synopsis, so that's all I'm going to say about this one. I have heard decent things about it, although the rating on Goodreads is fairly average. It's 3.89 for the first book, and the sequel has 4.31, but obviously it's only just come out, so that's to be expected. The Swarm. This one is a horror book about a swarm of bugs and insects. It says here that millions of insects appear unexpectedly off the rhythm of their 17-year cycle, and so a detective called Vicky is investigating a bizarre killing in her sleepy hometown. I don't know how those two things are connected. There's probably something horrific going on because this is a horror book, but yeah, I don't know why the synopsis has mentioned the insects and then immediately the killing. It's like paranormal horror insect bug stuff. I am not a massive fan of like bug and insect horror, I have to admit. It's because that episode of Supernatural, the one that no one talks about, kind of ruined that sort of subgenre for me. But I might check this one out at some point. I found it quite amusing reading this synopsis, to be honest. And then we're moving on to the 12th of November. This first book is a mystery horror book. It's a YA book, I think, about a teenager called Ava who finds a dead body. It is the body of one of her classmates, and I think she starts to investigate what could have happened to him. The reason this one is a little bit different to other YA horror thriller books is because the main character, Ava, is obsessed with decomposition and the rate at which dead animals decompose. And so when she comes across a dead body, she's like, oh my god, this is like gold. But she does tell the police, so it's okay. I thought this one just sounded a little bit different. It's set in a small community, I think in Alabama, and I really do like small town thriller horror books, so I think this one sounds really good. The Lotus Empire. I haven't actually read the first book in this series. It's the Burning Kingdom series. I've not read the first one. It's behind me here, and I've been meaning to read it for years, but I haven't. I don't actually know what it's about. Again, this is another one where I've been trying to avoid spoilers so that I can just go into it knowing absolutely nothing. The only thing that I do know is it was part of the Static Trifecta, none of which actually I have read. But I do own all of them, so maybe that's like a reading vlog for the future. It's an epic fantasy book, that's all I know. The next one is a romantasy book. This one is about Fae. It's called Servant of Earth. I think it's about a human woman who is forced into the world of the Fae, and they probably take advantage of her and stuff. The synopsis mentions something about trials, and we all love a good trial, I think. It says here that the main character, Kenna, must face monsters, magic, and grueling physical tests. And then there's a secret rebellion and a tyrant king and stuff. But, you know, your standard things in a romantasy book. I don't know if I'll be reading this one right away. I'm going to see if the hype picks up for it. It does have a high average rating so far, but it's only got 130 ratings, so I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about picking this one up. The Cting of Bristol Keats. This one is by Mary E. Pearson, and she is apparently a really good author, but I've not read anything by her. But I have been told that her books are very good. I do want to read them eventually. This is another romantasy fae book. I really wish, as a side note, romantasy would explore other kind of creatures other than fae. It's just getting really tiresome, I think. Just leave it to Sarah J. Maas at this point. So it says here that the main character loses both of her parents, and she's looking after her sisters as they struggle to stay afloat in a small town. The main character receives letters from an aunt who she has never heard of, who wants to help her. And then her father might also still be alive and has been kidnapped. This sounded a lot like ACOTAR, and I don't know how I feel about it. But yeah, it's on my list. Let me know what you think if you're going to read this. Then we're moving on to the 19th of November. We're starting with the Maui Effect. This is a contemporary romance book. It's being likened to Taylor Jenkins Reid, and her books tend to destroy me and stress me out, so that's kind of what hooked me on this one. It's about a young woman who kind of lives in the Maui rainforest, like lives and works in there. She's a field biologist, so she does a lot of research in the rainforest about like birds and things, I think. And obviously there are a lot of endangered species in Hawaii, so she is quite upset when she finds out that the landowners are planning to have a resort developed there, and so she starts to fight to protect it. Like I said, it's a romance book, so she meets a guy called Dane, and all I know about him is he's a surfer, and that's probably all I need to know. I really love this cover. I think it's really cute. It's reminding me of like the YA contemporary books from back in the day. I've put this on the list because, like I said, I enjoy Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I also really enjoy books about, you know, saving the ecosystem and endangered species and stuff. So that's why I've put this on here. When Mimi Went Missing. This is another YA mystery thriller book. It says here that it's about two Indian American cousins who are at the center of this YA mystery. It says here that Tanvi has always thought of her cousin Mimi as her sister, at least until Mimi fell under the spell of their flawless rich classmate Beth, who is Tanvi's biggest bully, and she takes a photo of Mimi and Beth at a party, which is quite incriminating. Tanvi wakes up one morning with having gotten a bump to the head. She's lost some of her memories, and Mimi has vanished. So I think this one sounds quite good. A little bit different because it's following the two cousins, I think, or at least it's following someone who is kind of ratting on their cousin. And I think it sounds quite dark, so I would really like to read this one actually. The White Ladder. This one is a non-fiction book. It's about mountaineering before everyone decided to climb Everest. So it's kind of like the history of mountaineering. I don't know if you know this about me, probably not because I don't talk about it very much, but I am obsessed with reading or watching videos about like mountaineering disasters or hiking disappearances and problems. I don't really know why. I think it's because I like to go hiking and climbing mountains, and so I don't know, something is like connecting me to these kinds of stories, and so I would really like to read this one because it's about the history of mountaineering. The synopsis specifically says that it's talking about local guides and indigenous mountaineers whose feats are often too eclipsed by white European counterparts. So I think this one sounds really good and I would really like to read it. I might pre-order it and I would really like to get my hands on it. The Songbird and the Heart of Stone. This is the third book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series by Clarissa Broadbent, and it's also the first book that follows Misha, who is the male love interest best friend from the first two books. I probably won't go into detail about this one, but I love the sound of the romance in this. This is a fantasy series about vampires, basically. I've done a whole recap of the first book on my channel if you would like to go and check that out. In the first book, the main character is the adopted daughter of a king, a vampire king, who is a bit of an arse, and she, the main character, enters into trials, and there she meets the love interest, and she meets this new main character, Misha, and she has to win the trials in order to gain a wish from a god. In short, my other recap is a lot more in depth than that was. So yeah, I don't really want to talk about much of what this book is about because it's going to spoil something from the first two books. However, I will say that it follows someone from the House of Shadow, and I'm so excited because we know nothing about the House of Shadow. I think it's gonna be really good. The Half King. This one is another romantasy book, and I think this one is YA. I think this is more of a political fantasy book, I think. It says here that long ago the kingdom's noble houses rose up against the goddess, and for their treachery the firstborn of each noble family was cursed. The main character has to become a seer, but she doesn't have the gift of foretelling, so I don't know how that's gonna work. She's got no magic at all, so that's really interesting. And then it talks about a king called Kian Hannibal Mortara, which is a combination of names. So I don't know if this is going to be like a romance between the main character and the king, or if there's going to be someone else entirely involved. I just find it a bit weird that he's got like a full name in the synopsis. So yeah, maybe it's between those two. It's got quite a low average rating actually. It's only 3.65, so maybe I won't read this one. But if you do, tell me how you find it because I might be convinced to pick it up. The Last Hour Between Worlds. This one I am so excited for. So this is queer adult science fiction, and in this one we follow a star investigator and her rival, who I think are going to fall in love, I think, and these two travel through the different layers of reality to save the world. And that sounds amazing. That sounds exactly like my kind of thing. It's being called adventure fantasy, so it might be more of a fantasy book than a sci-fi book, but it sounds kind of like mind-bending, and I really love that. So the main character is called Kembrel, who goes to a party and then the guests start dropping dead. And because she is part of a guild, she has to get involved and find out what's happening. And then her nemesis, Rika, who is a professional burglar, is also on the prowl. So I think this sounds absolutely brilliant. I am so excited for it. Like I said earlier, this one is coming out on the 19th of November as well. Okay, and then we've just got two more. The first one is another YA mystery thriller. So November is apparently the month for them. This is about an heiress who disappears from her super yacht, and I don't think it's about the actual heiress herself. It says here that it's told in reverse chronological order, so that's really interesting. I love it when authors do something a little bit different to kind of hook you in. It says here that it was supposed to be the best ever girls trip, 5 days, 4 friends, one yacht, and no parents. But on the final night, 18-year-old heiress Giselle vanished. She was nowhere to be found the next morning until security footage surfaces showing Maggie pushing her overboard, but Maggie has no memory of what happened. It sounds a little bit like a certain real life event as well that I won't go into here, except there was no security footage of that, so we don't really know what happened for sure. I really like the sound of this one. I think it sounds quite good. I think it sounds kind of action-packed and mysterious, and I love the idea of the best friends getting together on the yacht and then not really knowing what happened. And then the final book that's coming out on the 19th of November is She Really Going Out With Him by Sophie Cousins. This is the author of This Time Next Year, which is really popular. This is contemporary romance chick lit sort of thing. I don't like using the term chick lit, so forget I ever said that. This is about a woman called Anna who is going through a painful divorce. She has a couple of kids and some pets and is now newly single. Her office rival is apparently vying for her position or her role, and she desperately needs to keep her job. And so Anna pitches a new idea for her column, which involves her going on 7 dates, which are found offline, so traditionally, and these dates are chosen by her children. I think that sounds really different. I don't really love reading about children in books, but it sounds more like it's going to be about Anna rather than the kids. So I think it sounds good and I would like to read it. I know that I like Sophie Cousins' writing, so sounds like a good one. And with that, that's the list for November. Let me know in the comments below which ones you're interested in, if there are any coming out in November that I have missed or haven't spoken about that you would really like to read. Tell me in the comments below. As I said, I do these videos every single month, so the next one you see will be the final one of the year, and that's going to be the December new releases for Bookmas. And I'm really excited. There are some good books coming out in December, even though it's a bit of a quieter month. And I will also in December be talking about my most anticipated 2025 releases, like as a whole. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be a really good video, I hope, full of really good books at least. Thank you for watching, and I'll speak to you all in the next video. Bye.